Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. If we could have roll call and confirmation of the Kansas Open Meetings Act requirements.
Yes, in terms of the roll call, we have Board Member Noonan, Board Member Martins, Board Member Kitchen here. Board Member Helzer is not here. As I informed the chair, this week we received a letter of resignation from Mikesh Patel saying that his schedule at his motel didn't allow him to continue serving. So we have a quorum of 3 out of 4 appointed members, and I have confirmed with the development coordinator that the required notice has been provided for today's meeting, so we are in conformance with the Open Meeting Act and can proceed.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those? And if so, any comments, corrections, changes? No? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I so move.
Okay, moved and seconded. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes approved. We're ready for our new business, application CC 20-13.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application has been filed by Mr. Guy Walker on behalf of Blue Beacon International. They're requesting approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow the construction or essentially replacement of 2 metal canopies and the installation of a new projecting sign on the National Bank of America building that's located at the southwest corner of Santa Fe and Iron. The property in question is described as Lot 110 on Santa Fe Avenue, and it's addressed as 100 South Santa Fe. In your report, we provided some background information about some of the historical and architectural significance of this building, and those characteristics led to this property being nominated for and in August of this year placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And that listing was amended to include the drive-in that's located directly to the west of the main building. And so this is different than some of the previous cases that have come before this board because we're dealing with a property that now has historical significance. And what that means is if you are a National Register property in the Masonic Temple, the Lee Building, Stiefel Theater, those would be examples of other National Register properties. That creates a protective review of projects that might adversely affect the architectural character of the historic property. And because we're a certified local government, those types of reviews are performed locally by the Heritage Commission. So we're in potentially the situation where you have a dual review, where you have items that are reviewed by both Design Review Board and Heritage Commission. However, there's an exception when there's a project that's being funded by federal and state rehabilitation tax credits, and in those cases the developer is working directly with the State Historic Preservation Office. So in this case, one of the reasons for seeking the National Register designation was eligibility for tax credit financing. And so when that is the case and there are tax credits involved, then the building owner's working directly with the State Historic Preservation Office. So that is the case here, and so we've determined that there's not a need for dual review by the Heritage Commission, and so you are the reviewing body for these changes. And so there are 2 existing metal canopies on this building, and this is a view from the Santa Fe side, and you can see the metal canopy that's brownish in color that extends out over the Santa Fe sidewalk. There's a similar one on the north side which I'm not sure we have. You can kind of see it where Dustin has the arrow there. And the applicant has indicated that these metal-clad canopies are in a deteriorated state. And so as part of the overall rehabilitation of the building, Blue Beacon and their architects are proposing to remove the existing metal cladding and replace it with new pre-finished metal in a historically complementary style. And so this drawing here on the left-hand side shows the current conditions. Dustin will try to blow that up for you a little better. And then side by side with that is an illustration of what is proposed in its place. So the applicant is essentially recladding the existing canopies. None of the dimensions will change. We've got recessed storefronts, so even though the canopies are 6 feet wide, they'll only extend about 4 feet out over the public sidewalk. So our building frontage on Santa Fe is 50 feet, and that canopy is 6 feet wide and 13 feet long. And, no, excuse me, that's the one on Iron. The one on Santa Fe is 42 feet long, as you can see in that photo. But the Iron Avenue, the frontage is 120 feet. I confess that I struggle, and some of these don't reproduce as well, but the narrative that we received attached to that said the field color will be charcoal gray. I think I identified these as dark brown or dark bronze, but that's what my eyesight tells me, so we'll ask for clarification from the applicant on that. Just for clarification, when we have an awning that extends out like this, we treat the sign that's on that awning as a wall sign for regulatory purposes, and so we don't consider the fact that it's attached to an awning making it a projecting sign. So probably the biggest change proposed as part of this project is there's a sign that's flush mounted to the building that wraps around the corner that indicates UMB on it. It's blue sign, and the applicant is proposing to replace that with a projecting sign or blade sign that would be placed at the northeast corner, and that sign would be spotlit from above. And we have an elevation in the packet that depicts that. So obviously, because we're within the downtown business improvement district, these proposed exterior facade changes need to be reviewed by this body and a certificate of compatibility issued before the project proceeds. So we've probably written a little bit longer report than we normally would, and we included information about building rehabilitation because it talks about character defining features, and those types of things are important in the case of a National Register property. And we also have design guidelines for signage, and we have design guidelines for awnings and canopies. The other aspect of this that the board doesn't get as directly involved with, but staff does, and we've included because it's important for the board to know, is that obviously we have sign codes for our downtown area. And so you can have a projecting sign that projects out over the public right-of-way, no more than half the width of the abutting public sidewalk or alley. Any sign so extending must be a minimum of 10 feet above grade. This sign meets all of those criteria. It doesn't extend out greatly over the sidewalk. It's more than 10 feet above the grade. In terms of the number of signs, you can have 4 signs per business on a downtown, and you can have 10 signs per zoning lot, or 10 signs. This whole building would be considered a zoning lot. For projecting signs, the maximum size is 48 square feet on a building with 54 51 feet or more of frontage. This bank has 170 feet of frontage with Iron and Santa Fe combined, but the maximum projecting sign allowed would be 48 square feet. So as we understand it, the goal here is to update and freshen the exterior appearance of the building while retaining its historical character and appearance. From a visual impact standpoint, staff has identified the wrapping of the limestone columns in front of the building with metal and the installation of a new blade sign on the northeast corner of the building. We think those are the biggest changes. Again, one of the reasons we ask applicants to attend is to explain, when we look in some photos, it appears that those columns are already clad in some metal, but the way the application was worded made it sound like when it referred to wrapping the limestone columns would lead one to believe that the current exterior is limestone. So staff would request that the applicant or their architect provide additional information about the reasons for cladding the front limestone columns and how that might relate to their tax credit application. The same with the projecting sign, blade sign. If the State Historic Preservation Office and National Park Service have looked at those and found them to be consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, then we would recommend that this board defer to that. As to the blade sign or projecting sign, Mr. Hers and I have both looked at it independently. We both concluded that the way we would measure signs, that sign is 52 square feet and the maximum size allowed in the downtown area is 48 square feet. So the applicant would have the option of reducing the size of the sign or applying for a maximum size variance or a text amendment to increase the allowable sign size for projecting signs. It's very close, so it wouldn't, we don't think it would take a lot to get it to 48 square feet, but that is a decision for the applicant. As far as the canopy changes, there are really no changes in materials or dimensions. No facade features are being covered up or obscured. And so we think all the wall signs and the type of signage proposed is consistent with the downtown design guidelines. So we've provided for you on page 7 just some suggested findings that we think could be made in support of the proposed exterior changes. And so on page 8, we've identified your alternatives, which would be to approve the application upon finding that the proposed canopies and signs will conform with the design guidelines for downtown Salina. Option 2 would be to approve a certificate of compatibility application subject to any conditions that were approved by a majority of the board. You could postpone consideration in order to acquire additional information concerning this proposal. You'd want to set the date of a future meeting if you were to postpone, or you could deny the application as presented upon making findings of fact that support denial. Following review of the application and any additional information presented at the hearing, staff would recommend option 2 with the following conditions of approval. The projecting sign must be reduced in size to 48 square feet, that the exterior rehabilitation work comply with the project plans and specifications, and any additional stipulations by the State Historic Preservation Office. And if there are any significant changes to the design or materials approved by the Design Review Board, that those would come back to staff and we would determine whether additional review by you would be required before it went forward. I would explain that the reason we have number 2 in there is just to provide assurance and to reinforce the fact that we are essentially waiving or doing away with any local heritage commission review, so the expectation is that the plans and specifications for this work and in addition to any conditions that this board might have would be subject to stipulations that the State Historic Preservation Office might have. So we're not sure how far along the applicant is with the State Historic Preservation Office, and they could update us on that. But I think the main thing we would have is clarifying the color of the metal cladding, clarifying where the existing columns on Santa Fe are already clad in metal, and then any thoughts about the ability to reduce the blade sign down to 48 square feet. So we'll start, see if there's any questions from board members, and then we can hear from the applicant.
Yeah. I think just for clarification purposes for the public, anybody listening and such, is again, we're saying that the signage, the 52 square feet is above the 48 square feet
Right.
limitation.
So even if you said, we like the design and the dimensions and everything about that sign, and you said, we like it, we approve the design, if they applied for a sign permit to put it up, we would not be able to issue it because it exceeds 48 square feet. So
Again, so, go ahead.
So we're just clarifying that at this point, that we think that we need to explore a little bit to see if it's feasible to get that, do something with the sign that would get it to 48 square feet or less.
And for them to, otherwise, if they wanted 52 square feet again, it'd have to go to the Board
They
of
could
Zoning.
go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or we could work with them to
Okay.
amend the sign code to have a
Allow that. All right.
larger size. But
Okay.
as far as your role, you're
Right.
looking at the design, the concept, the general size. We just want to make clear to everybody that even if you say we like that just the way it is, it's slightly larger than what we could issue a sign permit for, so.
Okay.
And then can I ask a follow-up then as well?
Sure.
On the wrapped pillars, what is the concern of it being wrapped versus not? Like, why was that flagged as an issue? Or
The
potential?
reason that was flagged is staff's experience with National Register properties and the Secretary of Interior standards for building rehabilitation. They discourage covering up original materials.
Okay.
And so and I said we could have misinterpreted it. When we looked at the application, it seemed to indicate that the pillars were limestone and they were going to be covered. But the concern with that is that our design guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards discourage, they don't prohibit, they just discourage covering up or obscuring original facade materials. And so if it were limestone today and you wrapped it in metal cladding, that would be covering up or obscuring an original material. And so that's why we called that out. However, if they're already wrapped and that was part of their nomination, then it's obviously of less concern because all you're doing is replacing, not covering. So that's for the applicant to clarify. We do our best to zoom in on these plans, but we can't always tell the level of detail. And so that's why it's helpful to have the applicant explain it.
So yes, applicants, would you like to address the board?
I'll need your help. Okay. Hi.
Hello. If you could
Okay.
identify yourself.
Yes, Guy Walker, 500 Graves Boulevard. Welcome to the new members. Haven't met you yet. I've been here a few times. So to give you a little background on the building, it was built in the 20s. I can't remember exactly when. And when it was originally built, it did not have that storefront glass system. It was all a stone facade, and it had it had two doors in the kind of centered at the entry. And in the 60s, I think 64, they did a big renovation, which really changed the whole front of really changed the entire building, actually. So those two columns that Dean is referring to, I think they're not, there's metal now, and I think they were not exposed in the original construction. So I think now they're just the original, underneath that metal is just the concrete columns, like the raw construction. And so I think that's why, is that?
Yeah, that's the condition we have today. There's existing metal that matches the canopy that wraps both of those columns. It's in really bad condition too. It's probably worse than the canopies themselves because of the rust.
55 years of people walking by and
Salt and water and.
So, Ben is, I don't know, you're kind of an expert in historic preservation and storefronts and
If you'd
things
like
like
to step
that.
on up,
So
you can both be up there, I think. I don't know.
Ben Moore, I'm architect on this, and we are the historic nerds across the state. Is the best way to
Yeah,
say it.
okay, they're having a little time hearing you, so if you
I'm
can go
sorry.
ahead and speak up closer.
Ben
Yeah.
Moore, and I was saying we are the historic nerds across the state. So what we've done on that is looked at replacing the deteriorating metal in a complementary fashion. And we are looking at a prefabricated color that is charcoal gray. I know in the renderings it might look like a dark bronze, but it's more of a powder coat color, which typically in historic settings is a little more positive than going with the anodized route. And that's why we decided to go that direction.
Okay.
So I think that addresses both the color and the columns. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And then I certainly have no problem with the sign going down to meet the, you know, to the 48 square feet.
Okay,
Yeah,
that won't be a problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that won't be a problem at all.
Few inches.
Yeah, it won't take much, right. So that's not a problem. I want to just, let's see.
Could you tell us where you are in terms of, have you got your plans have been reviewed for your tax credit part of this, or those are all, the review is still pending on the?
The review, yeah, that's correct. The review is pending for that. So we submitted, we just submitted it. We'd already submitted plans. I mean, I would say 90% of the project is done. We submitted this as an amendment to our original application with, actually with almost the exact same drawings that you all see as well. So obviously we don't have an answer back yet, but we don't have our tax credits yet, and so I can assure you we will do nothing to jeopardize them, because we spent a lot of money on the infrastructure of the building, kind of the things you can't see like HVAC, new electrical, new elevator, refurbish the existing elevator, so lots of really expensive items that are, most of which are qualified costs for the tax credits. So I can assure you we won't be doing anything until we have approval from the state and from the National Park Service on what this looks like. So anything you'd add to that?
Our preservation.
Up closer, yeah, thank you.
Our preservation consultant has been working with the state on that already, though, so they're aware of it, and it's in their queue.
Okay.
She's pretty well-versed. She helped us with, well, Ben's worked with her a lot. This is my first project with the state and the National Park Service. But I would say that she's pretty well-versed in what they will accept and what they find objectionable. She was a really good guide on the original project, and I was impressed. She knew, she would tell us, you know, no, that's not going to fly, and sure enough, yep, it didn't fly. Or she would say, you know, I think that'll be okay. I think they'll accept that. So she's looked at this, and she feels pretty comfortable that they will accept it. So, I mean, obviously, no guarantees, but
Doesn't look like too drastic of a change.
no, I would agree. Yeah, it's trying to bring it into a little bit more up to date. That anodized bronze is, not only is it in bad condition, but it's got those vertical kind of flutes, which to me kind of take it back to the 60s. And so this kind of helps bring it into today's standards. And you added the, I don't know what, the rods? That's, today there's no rods that go up, you know.
There's more rods there.
Yeah, so it kind of makes it look a little bit more authentic and, well, yeah.
Okay.
I had one other question that and this is maybe a question for Dean, but I just want to make sure that we don't accidentally need to come back in front of the board. So the sign on the north canopy, the UMB sign on the north canopy, I noticed that we had put it in there as blue. if they would decide, if UMB would decide that they would want that to be white, is that, would you consider that a substantial change where we would need to come back to this board, or would that be?
No.
No,
If it-
okay.
If it doubled in size, or if it was flashing or something like that, no, but
Okay.
as long as we would just administer that administratively through the sign permit.
Okay. That was the only other
'Cause
thing I
the
wanted.
the signs that were there today are white, so.
Yeah, but their logo's blue, so it's hard, I don't know exactly what they're going to want. So we'll obviously work with UMB on what they
Yeah.
want to go back with, and,
And that was just kind of a decision we made from the historic aspect. We constantly refer to this as the National Bank of America building, even though it's occupied by UMB Bank. I know that can be confusing, but
we're trying to, that's the Hoffman on the
I
front.
saw that, I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Rebrand it. and-
Yeah.
Well, everybody like Dean said, everybody calls it UMB, and they only occupy the first floor now. So, and we have a tenant on the fourth floor, Waddell and Reed, you saw that on there, and then we are working with another tenants, hopefully future tenants for floors 2 and 3. So we were trying to come up with something that would maybe give it its own identity, instead of just people referring to it as UMB. And the Hoffman family are the families they're part of the family that started National Bank of America, and their family owned it. I think their family actually sold it to UMB, so we kind of thought it was a cool connection to Salina and the history of the building, and so that's where we came up with it.
All right, great. Any other questions?
No,
Comments?
yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you both.
Thank you.
And I said, the reason that this was, we weren't doing necessarily a Heritage Commission staff report for the Design Review Board, but we just wanted to call attention, and the applicant is aware that when you're dealing with historic tax credits and with the State Historic Preservation Office, there's a higher level of scrutiny even above what this board would look at. So we're just not trying to create red flags, we're just pointing those things out, that those things will be looked at by the State Historic Preservation Office as well. And so if they're doing these in consultant with their historic preservation consultant, then they're in good hands. And our only concern about the sign was, and we agree, it's not hard to get 4 square feet out of a sign to make it fit, so.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Well, any other comments or suggestions from you? Not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move for option 2, which is approve the certificate compatibility with the projected sign reduced to 48 square feet. And if there are any significant changes, that will be brought back to the board.
And then,
I'll second it.
you second it? And Dean, do we need that in there about the exterior
Oh, I missed
rehabilitation?
that
Yeah,
part.
yeah, probably add that in there, shouldn't we? They're saying that it
Yeah,
complies with the National
that
Park
is-
Service.
That's at the discretion of the maker of the motion, so if you want to
If you'd like
include
to-
all.
Yeah, I will include that
Yeah.
it will comply.
You could just reference the 3 conditions in
The
the
3
staff report.
conditions under the staff recommendation, then.
All right. We have a motion and a second, and if
second.
there's no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, approved.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
So we'll get you a written summary of that, and
guess
then,
I'm one of those
I
that
can't
just
remember,
always
you don't have a, do they have a sign permit pending?
Yeah, I learned it as the NBA building. so-
Yeah.
The 2 tenants
Funny.
and some things like that, so.
So that, our letter will just tell you that your next step would be to submit a sign permit.
Terrible.
Horrendous to
Horrendous to
history.
Yeah, to architecture, buildings, and
Right.
Thanks, Dean.
history
All
of
right,
things.
thank you.
Just,
Bye.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, does it appear we have any administration or preliminary discussion items?
We do not. As we are closing out 2020, we're on a reduced schedule, and so the only scheduled meeting that you have would be in the second Thursday of December. And as of this moment, we don't have any applications filed, but we will notify you in advance of that whether the meeting will be held or canceled due to lack of items. But we've remained pretty busy on the downtown activity And so you can see that this was application 20-13, which means this is the 13th case that's come before the board this year, and that's actually pretty active. So we can't tell you at this point whether we'll have the December meeting, but we will keep you informed, and like I said, we will work with Penny Bettles and Salina Downtown Inc. and see if we can encourage some additional citizens to sign up to serve on the design review board. But we certainly appreciate your participation.
Is there any certain specific openings, or could it be community at large members?
It can be community at large. We have one opening that's designated for an architect or design professional, and Maggie Gillum was that previously, and there were no architects or design professionals that submitted an expression of interest. So we will let Penny know that we're, in addition to citizens at large, there's a requirement that one of the members be a property owner downtown, and I believe that Haley fits that category, and we have one for design professional, and the rest are citizen at large.
Okay.
But we're gonna alert Penny that we're operating at 4 members, and we certainly could use 3 more to get us our full complement. But that's really all that we have for you this evening, and we'll certainly keep you informed about what's happening December. And I do have another set of minutes here for Mr. Martins to sign. I know he'll have to get used to it, but
Yeah.
we're getting used to it too, so I'll bring those up to you before you leave to get your signature on there.
Okay. Well, if we have no other business and there's nobody here from the public to speak, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Your turn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion adjourned.
Officially adjourned.
Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned. Jeez. Well, the motion's adjourned too.
Yeah, it all works.